Welcome to this introduction to the earth element on the stomach and spleen. I think you're going to find this interesting and Malik's teachings very empowering. Let's take a look.
Now we're going to travel into the earth element. The earth element comprises of the spleen, pancreas, and the stomach. It's actually the function of digestion. Most of our digestion happens in the duodenum, just below the lower stomach. So when we talk about this element of earth, we need to kind of bring that in also. The earth in the Chinese hierarchical aspect, as where the heart was the divine emperor and the liver was the general in charge, the earth element is the minister of the granary, a minister of agriculture. It's where the body, when we eat and we take in food, what happens is that the stomach, spleen, pancreas, and the duodenal aspect actually extract it's called gu qi, gu meaning the nourishment qi from food. And that's what's happening in our digestive system. The nice thing about a lot of these terms in ancient Chinese from antiquity, they bear truth to Western medical science. You just have to look at it with a little bit of a metaphorical vision, but you can see that they are actually saying the same thing pretty much as Western medicine. It's just that in Chinese medicine or in the Aboriginal medicines of Asia, they're used in metaphor. They didn't have all the pollutants that we are dealing with today and all the other stresses and the amount of people, et cetera, et cetera. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the earth element. The earth element is solid. Now, we know that the spring is going to be the wood, liver, and we know the summer is going to be the heart, small intestine, fire element. And we know that the autumn is going to be the metal, lungs, and the winter is the kidney, water. But where does the earth element fit in? The earth element in the old five-element diagram was in the center. Now, when we look at it these days, we look at the earth element as the time between the seasons. So at the end of spring and in the beginning of summer, that's ruled by our digestion. At the end of summer and the beginning of autumn, that's ruled by our digestion, the earth element. And the same holds true for the end of autumn into winter and the end of winter into spring. So it's actually in the classics, they say it's an 18-day period. Some books or some translators translate it as late summer or Indian summer, and that's fine too. But you see what they're saying is they're recognizing one transitory period from summer to autumn, late summer. In the traditional classics, they talk about the earth element is the space between each of the elements as they transit from one to the next. That's when we need to pay close attention to our digestion. When we talk about digestion, a lot of times what we're dealing with in syndromes, it's called spleen qi deficiency. Spleen qi deficiency could show itself as a sluggish bowel movement or a watery stool or undigested food in the stool or plenty of gas and indigestion, heartburn, etc., etc. So what we'll be doing is first we're going to go on with the internal visceral organ for the spleen, pancreas, stomach, and then we'll do the facial qigong, which relates with the mouth, because the mouth eats, the teeth. Each one of the teeth represent a digestive juice, as where the tongue was engaged with the heart, the tongue moving, the tongue waggling, talking. The lips and the teeth go with the digestive system. I'll show you the internal organ exercise, then we'll do the sense organ exercise, and we'll end with the sound fu, F-U. Now, fu is the sound for the spleen, pancreas, stomach, and again, the f sound is going to be clearing out any pathogenic factors. Cold, wind, damp, heat, stagnation. These things come in and they create havoc. The spleen has a tendency, the spleen stomach has a tendency of getting too cold. And I think a lot of it has to do with the overabundance for some people of raw food or cold food, too much ice food, too much cold drinks and cold foods, it cools down the digestion. The body being 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit, when we take food in, the stomach has to warm that food up to 100 degrees Fahrenheit in order to break it down, to digest, assimilate, and absorb the nutritional value. So when we're dealing with the earth element, let's keep in mind that digestion is a very key component to health. They say you are what you eat. Well, it's not really true. You are what you assimilate, and that's more accurate. So let's explain these. The Qigong internal organ exercise, the left hand will go on the stomach, the right hand will breathe out and push out and releasing any baneful energy and bringing in breath, taking in yellow qi. Breathing out, toxicity, poisons. Breathing in, yellow qi. In order to do the complete visceral organ, we have to do one of my favorite exercises, and this is called fire in the stove. Because again, I mentioned the heat. The fire in the stove exercise, and we'll do that, and it works two ways. One is working friction rubbing this way, and then friction rubbing clockwise, and then counterclockwise. Clockwise from the center of the navel, making spiralic circles larger, and then reversing and going from big circle to small circle. And that will be the fire in the stove exercise for the internal visceral organ. The sense organ, the teeth, what we'll do is we'll move our tongue outside of our teeth, between the teeth and the gums, and our eyes will follow. We'll be making circles around our mouth like this, and the eyes will follow with it. And we'll do each direction. Then we'll tap our teeth together 36 times, building up saliva, hold the saliva, then we'll churn the saliva. Inside the saliva, which is a very important fluid, is the amylase, which helps break down your starches and carbohydrates. So you can see how saliva is so valuable with digestion. After we tap our teeth, we'll hold the saliva, we'll swish the saliva, oh, and by the way, that also clears and freshens your breath. And then we'll bring it down and we'll swallow it, and we'll take it all the way down to the lower dantian, the Qi high point, conception vessel point number 6. The sound will be fu. The f sound will be clearing out any toxicity, and the oo will be like a foghorn sound, vibrating into that area. It will go like fu. So we'll work with that.